Oh, good afternoon, everybody. We'll call the meeting to order. The first item on the agenda today is the agenda itself. I really only see one thing that's been added, but I'm not even sure if we would call that an add-on at the moment. Anything to add to the agenda that's not already there? Anything at all? If not, I'll accept a motion on the agenda as presented. Moved by Councillor Aker, seconded by Councillor Stoyles. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary-minded, motion is carried. Refer you now to the minutes of our last public council meeting, which was November 30th. And I will accept a motion on those minutes as presented. Moved by Councillor Tessier, seconded by Deputy Mayor Locke. Any questions, comments, errors, or omissions from the minutes of November 30th? The meeting of November 30th, errors or omissions? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary-minded, motion is carried. Today on proclamations, presentations, we have, well, first let's do business arising from the minutes. Let's go there first instead of moving on. Business arising. Minutes of November 30th. Going once, going twice. Councillor Lane, no business arising?
No, sir.
Deputy Mayor?
No, sir.
Nothing. What do you think? Councillor Walsh, no business arising?
Very good, Your Worship.
Nothing? Okay. No business arising. We will move on. And we will go to correspondence. We have no proclamations today. We have a piece of correspondence from the Heart and Stroke Foundation, and that basically shows writing a letter to yours truly here. Really, it's for council from George Tilley, the Chief Executive Officer for the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Newfoundland and Labrador, and basically they're complimenting us on our ongoing and continuing support for the Mayor's March on Heart Disease. We've participated in that and been a part of that as a community for, I don't know, almost since its inception, certainly. This year, the Mayor's March on Heart Disease raised over $24,000, and obviously they are going to be seeking our support again this coming June, that the city participate in that particular fundraiser. I'm pretty confident that we will. Anybody with a comment on that piece of correspondence? No? Okay. We're going to move on to committee report. We're going to be fast today, aren't we? Because we got a budget to bring down and everybody wants to know about.
That's right.
Right? Okay. What do we say? 37 million, we'll split it between the seven of us and everybody go. Right? No.
I'll second that.
I'll second that motion. Well, we're going to get to that, but we've got to do it in the order it appears here on our agenda today. Public Works Committee is being called first. Councillor Paula Tessier as chair. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a short agenda tonight because, of course, we're all very interested in hearing what Councillor Lane's going to have to say with the budget. First item is the RFP results for one asphalt roller. The quotes were listed there. The committee is recommending that the tender be awarded to the lowest bidder of the gas-powered asphalt roller, which is Battlefield, in the amount of $14,699 plus HST, and I so move.
Question or comment? Hearing none, all in favor? Contrary-minded, motion is carried.
Council should know that this is something that we have required in the past. We've always rented one when we do driveway repairs or if we have to cut the street somewhere, but it's been determined that we're spending too much money in rentals, and it was more cost efficient to actually purchase one and have it ourselves.
Good.
Next, we have the RFP results for a standby generator for the depot. Of course, all the quotes are listed there. The RFP for the supply and the installation of the generator transfer switch, enclosure, concrete pad, and all necessary cabling, conduit supplies, and engineering diagrams, permits, etc., and everything that's necessary to complete the installation, testing, and commissioning is in our recommendation should be awarded to Tormont Cat in the amount of $217,796.75, and I so move.
Moved by Councillor Tessier, seconded, I believe, by Councillor Walsh. Any question or comment from anybody on this? I'm assuming then this means that if we have another major power outage, we have another visit from Igor or one of his family members, that we will be able to keep the depot up and running with electricity all the way through that. And it's all going to be part of our emergency, I guess our new emergency preparedness plan.
That's exactly it.
Which is underway.
Exactly it. It's to keep the depot up and running in the unfortunate instance if we should have another power outage like we had with Igor.
$218,000 for a generator. Wow. It's a biggie.
Costs a lot to keep you lighted and to give you power.
Money well spent.
Money well spent.
All
those, we'll call the question on it. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary-minded, motion is carried.
We want to do a little bit of bragging now about our recycling program. We have had incredible success with the recycling program, with the new, of course, container recycling, which was implemented very recently. Before, our fiber recycling accounted for 7% of our household or of our waste, and now, of course, it has been moved up to 12%. Our recycling has been moved up to 12% since bringing on container recycling, which is a 71% increase in recycling in the city. So we're really, really proud of that. The tonnage has increased from 43 tons to 71 tons, which is a 65% increase. So the participation, for all intents and purposes, really has been fantastic. And I know that personally, I haven't received a whole lot of commentary, or I shouldn't say commentary, we've received a lot of positive commentary. I haven't received a lot of criticism or complaints about the project, because I think people have viewed it as being long overdue. And everybody seems to be very receptive and eager to participate in it. So we wanted to certainly bring that to the attention of council and to the public as well.
The only thing I've had any calls about are people who don't know what day their recycling is supposed to go out, because, you know, they've lost the book, they've lost the guide or whatnot, or they've got the weeks confused. And I've gotten a call from somebody saying, I put out the recycling and they didn't pick it up. Was this the day? I've had a couple of those, but otherwise it's been, everybody signed on it,
Well,
you know,
even
really
in our
positive.
even in our neighborhood this week, today, in fact, was not recycling day, but I did notice that some people did put the recycling out. But if you have lost your calendar, it is online, it is on our website, and it's certainly just to make a phone call as well. And I'm sure that we'd be happy to send out another hard copy if people would prefer.
Absolutely.
And of course, in the new year, we're going to discuss the program, the participation, any improvements that we can make, if there's going to be a change in the frequency of the collection periods. Again, you know, it depends on all the information that we receive. So again, we just wanted to brag about that, because that is really good news. It's good news for our environment and good news for the city.
Can I ask a question, Your Worship?
Councillor Aker, please, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. My question really pertains to condo owners here in the city of Mount Pearl, and we've rolled this out to all residents where we do the garbage collection and that. How would condo owners and business owners basically join up into this recycling program? How do they participate? I know business levels won't have the same amount of containers and fiber. Well, I take that back about the fiber, but certainly not the same amount of containers that you'd find in a household. But take condos, for example, with private garbage collection. How does the city, at the end of the day, ensure that those residents also participate in the program? Because I think that would be a good thing, too. I don't know if anybody has the answer to that.
Your Worship,
Mr. Lush.
condo owners are on private contracts, and a lot of private contractors offer that option. So it's really up to the owners to push it from the condo's perspective. So
Usually done by the boards as well.
they make the decision to go. We haven't, right now, we have it as optional, but
Yeah, we have
The
not
condo-
said to condominium operations in our city, you are required to do this. But if they want to do this, they would have to negotiate it with their private collectors to actually do, you know, to collect the separated goods for them.
that's great.
Okay. Something to be considered, I would think. Mr. Lewis?
Yes, also I'm working on another project on behalf of all of the urban municipalities in the province to try to move the compactor, what's referred to as the big belly compaction unit, which is also very environmentally friendly, operate the compactor through solar energy, and we're working in conjunction with various government funding, the MMSB and the provincial government waste management, and we're trying to put together a cost-shared proposal to bring in and advance the provincial waste management strategy in the open spaces. So some of the larger areas, the open space, we'll put that there with the 3-stream and eventually go to 4-stream. So this will advance the waste management
So
strategy.
that condo owners and that could take their actual garbage to that kind of like transfer station almost.
And all of our open spaces, all of the commercial buildings and the schools, and the idea is to try to put all of those through all of the urban centers, and we're facilitating, coordinating that on behalf of all of the urban municipalities. And that's something probably be by the first quarter of next year.
Thank you. Councillor Tessier?
And finally, Your Worship, the committee is recommending approval in accordance with the professional development and training policy for the Director of Infrastructure and Public Works to attend an educational session at Dalhousie University. It's high impact presentation skills, and that's from, well, I guess it's already happened, December 2nd to the 3rd, 2010. So I move that be approved as presented.
It is moved, seconded by Councillor Walsh. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? Motion is carried.
And that's it.
And that concludes Public Works. Moving on, Community Services Committee report. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I have to determine whether I need these glasses or I need to have them off in order to see this.
You haven't figured this out yet?
No.
You got to lift it up.
Yeah,
you can lift it
It's
up.
fine. No, I'm
You're
aware
afraid
I
of it,
can
aren't
lift
you?
it.
You're afraid of it still.
No, not at all, actually. I'm not afraid of it at all. I just need to be able to read it, as you can appreciate.
Yeah, it can be a bit small.
The first thing, Your Worship, is just an order of business pertaining to a couple of tenders that we have for the community events calendar and also for our winter-spring activity guides, which are annual productions. And we had 3 qualified bids, Your Worship, and we're going to recommend that the low bidder, in both cases, Transcontinental, be awarded the contract, and I ask the support of council for that, and I so move.
Moved by Councillor
Seconded.
Walsh, seconded by Councillor Lane. Question or comment? All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
Civil order of business on the second item, Your Worship. For Canada Day, we normally put together a nice program of activities for children and for families, and we do that normally through the support of the Department of Canadian Heritage, and we're going to ask for the leave of council again to support the execution of an agreement between ourselves and the department for funding for that, and I so move.
Moved and seconded by Councillor Lane. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
Your Worship, this third item involving a new memorandum of understanding with the Seniors Independence Group on 50 plus is really a piece of good news for us. We are putting together, and have put together, in fact, through the Office of the CAO, a new agreement with the Seniors Independence Group, and an important part of that agreement, and I know Council is fully aware of it, and the members of the 50 plus club in the City of Mount Pearl in particular have been asking for that. As you're aware, the Mount Pearl Y have been running programs, and I think have done a good job in running many of the programs and facilities that they operate in the city. But this one piece of the program is something that has been a little bit of a problem for accessibility, for getting the right people in place to run the programs, and a number of other logistical things that at the end of the day we figured we might be able to do a little better, as we'd always done in the past in-house. So part of that new agreement is to actually have those programs returned to the city's community services programming division under the direction of Sean Michener in terms of those programs. And I think the 50 plus participants and all members of council are delighted to be able to have that slight change to the contract, and that's been executed in the form of an MOU. And I'm asking for the support of council. By the way, I should add that this is really minimal cost. In fact, we're hoping that we may be able to save the participants a few dollars. It'll be a nominal amount of money, but at least a few dollars. So it's not going to cost them any more to have it returned to us, so let's put it that way. Anyway, with that good news, Your Worship, I'm asking again for the support of council to support the new MOU as has been provided.
Moved, seconded. Question or comment? All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
And this year again, for 2011, the city is in for the East, West, North. If they add any more, it's going to be even that much more difficult to say. But the festival that's been successful for the past several years in Mount Pearl will continue. This year, Your Worship, there's a little change in terms of the corporate sponsorship. The agreement that we have here outlines the terms, conditions, responsibilities of all parties, and it's very clearly outlined. The one thing that I want to add, just for the comfort of council, is that we do have a little bit of an out in the agreement in terms of funding. The expectation, as has been in the past, is that there will be a certain amount of money leveraged through corporate sponsorship. What we're saying here basically is up to the end of March, if that money is not there, we will reserve the right to decide whether we want to continue to participate or whether we want to change that level of participation for 2011. And of course, that will be true for each of the years, the subsequent years of this agreement for the next 2 or 3 years. So that's a plus for us, Your Worship. So at the most we can be out will be the original 2 or initial 2 deposits, and after that we make a decision whether we want to continue with this or not. Hopefully, as has been in the past, this has been a successful event. The funding has come through. The corporate sponsorship has been there in spades, and we hope that that will continue for 2011. So with that, I ask for the leave of council again to support the execution of the MOU, and I so move.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Anyone? All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion is carried.
Your Worship, the next bit of information pertains to the Reed Community Center, the hours of operation. Obviously, we're closed for the season. I just ask people to check the website for the information on that, or check the telephone message manager at the Reed Center. Regards to the pool, that's a little more straightforward. The pool actually closes from December 23rd and won't reopen again until January 3rd for registration on the 3rd and 4th, with programs resuming on January 5th. Other than that, the last thing that I'd like to do is extend an invitation on New Year's. We do our first night celebration, which is a family-oriented event from 4 to 6 at the Glacier every year. It's always a fun event. This year, again, we have Mark Weber, who's going to be providing entertainment for the children. Even if parents are involved in New Year's festivities, this is early enough so that families can participate, 4 to 6. So one and all, come out. You're most welcome to join us at the Glacier once again and bring in the New Year with your family. And then maybe after that, if you have other parties or things that you want to go to, you're free to do that. So we'll be cleared up by around 6 o'clock, and we just extend a very warm invitation for everybody to participate. That's it, Your Worship, for me. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh, very much. An exciting season, obviously, coming up, and a busy one indeed. Thank you. We're moving on to our Engineering Services Committee report. Councillor Aker.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. These are easier for me to read too if I've held a little closer to my face. First item, Your Worship, the Building Canada Fund. This is an update on the 2010 street upgrading. Recall that we had 3 contract packages that went out this past year for the upgrading of streets and the like. The prices came in basically better than we expected, and there were some additional funds left in the budget, and of course we had to tap into some matching funds or similar funds from the provincial government. And now I'm happy to report that we have those funds approved. So total $1,385,000 from the Building Canada Fund for 2010 will be available now for the 2011 construction season. So this will be on top of what Councillor Lane will be announcing later on the budget, and I'm just tabling that for information purposes.
Councillor Aker, do we have any idea of the streets we're going to look at? I know that would still lie with Engineering and Public Works, I'm assuming.
Internally, there is some final
There's discussions are ongoing. We haven't seen the final.
The streets have been identified. Of course, one of the when we submit the application to the province, we have to give them the streets.
Yeah.
Along with the engineering work that's been done, right? So we do know the streets, but we won't really be posting them until around the time that the tender is awarded to whoever the contractor is who's going to do the work.
Fair enough. Yep. Thank you.
The next 2 items relate to the Glacier Arena expansion. Contract package 2, which is the interior fit-up. We have 2 interior fit-ups, sorry. We have 2 change orders, number 4 in the amount of $101,670. Plus we also have number 5 in the amount of $37,347.56. I'd like to move both of those change orders. We've reviewed these in committee. We've gone over them very thoroughly. The amounts, I wouldn't call them substantial, but they are large. But typically, whenever you're taking off the side of one building and putting a substantial building next door to it, you're bound to run into some unforeseen items. So our engineers have looked at it, and our consultants have looked at it, and we're recommending these 2 change orders for approval. I so move.
It moves, seconded by Councillor Stoyles. Just to the CAO, is it okay to do both of these as one motion? It's fine. All right, change orders number 4 and number 5. All those in favor? I'm sorry, you have a comment? Go ahead, Councillor Lane.
I just had a quick question, I guess, for Councillor Aker and maybe the CAO. Are we on budget for the Glacier? I mean, if you look at the overall budget, it's not a big number, but it's still a significant number, as you say. And just wondering where we're to. Are we eating into our contingencies? Are we gone beyond our contingencies? Where are we?
Yeah, it's a very good question, Councillor Lane. The budget for the Glacier extension, the entire budget for the whole project is $17.2 million. We spent $14.8. And once we approve these 2 change orders tonight, and there's another settlement that's coming on another contract, I'll be moving that in a few minutes. Basically, the contingency will be gone, which is not really unexpected this time, at the life of this project. The arena should be finished sometime, we're going to say February or March of 2011. We expect that we'll have it up and operational sometime in April. So we have to really, I guess we have to look at every possible item that comes across our table and decide whether we're going to spend it. If it's truly unforeseen as we get near the end of this project, we're going to have to look for additional funds. So we're really at our limit. and that's really all I can offer. So 17.2 million is the budget, and we're 14.8 in. No contingency left after this change order and the settlement.
Thank you.
Any other question or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor? Contrary minded, motion is carried.
The next item, Your Worship, is a status report on the delivery of traffic poles at the intersection of Bruce Street and Glencoe Drive out in Donovan's. We did this intersection late last summer, and we were ready, in addition to all the paving and the civil works that went in, we were ready to put in the new traffic lights there. But unfortunately, Igor struck, and as a result, we had to take some of the equipment which was destined for this intersection and use it basically to cover off as parts for some of the damage that was done to some of our lights and our poles throughout the city by Igor. I'm happy to report that the end is near. 5 of the 6 poles have been constructed. They're working on the last one, and basically the estimated time of delivery is a priority for the manufacturer, but we think we're going to have this done by the end of January. So finally, those folks who've been coming through the intersection in Donovan's have been wondering what happened to the lights. They're only around the corner, and you can blame Igor on that. Now, the last item I have here, Your Worship, is related again to the Pearlgate Recreation Complex, the Glacier Arena expansion. It's the settlement of a delay claim as it pertains to the installation of the Balin roof, and that roof was installed during the winter of 2010. Originally, with this project, it was expected that the roof would be installed through the fall and into early winter, but there were some delays in the project, and as a result, the contractor had to construct that roof essentially over the winter, which resulted in some delays. So there's been a bit of negotiating back and forth. This amount here, in the amount of $81,473, was requested by the contractor. Well, naturally, the contractor requested a lot more, but this is basically an attempt by the contractor to mitigate some of the damages and some of the losses that were incurred on the contract as a result of the late delay in constructing the roof. This has been the subject of negotiating between our staff, city solicitor, and the contractor, and I'm recommending the settlement in the amount of $81,473. It'll be approved for payment to Magna Contracting and Management, who I believe were the main contractor on the site, and Pittman Enterprises, who were the subcontractor installing the roof. And I so move.
Second.
Moved, seconded. Questions, comments?
What was the original? What was the? I mean, what are we saving there on that? You know?
Your Worship,
Sir Lewis?
that was probably about 1/3 of the original request.
About 1/3. So 2/3.
We're saving 2/3.
Yeah. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried.
That's it, Your Worship. Thank you.
That concludes it. We're up to Planning and Development Department Committee. Deputy Mayor Locke.
Thank you, Your Worship. The first item here, Your Worship, is an application that City has received from Industrial Rubber Newfoundland Limited to occupy approximately 12,000 square feet within the building at 44 Clyde Avenue for the storage and assembly of rubber products. And these products consist of items such as rubber hoses with fittings, gasket materials, and sheet rubber. This particular property is within the industrial light land use zone, and the storage of rubber in bulk is considered a general industrial use. Therefore, this particular application shall be processed in accordance with conditions 4 and 5 of our light industrial use zone table and regulations 22 and 91 of our development regulations 1988. As such, the application must be considered a discretionary use, and the application therefore must go to public notification for a public briefing session. A notice of the application was published in the Telegram on Saturday, November the 13th. The City, however, did not receive any representations prior to the deadline of Monday, November 29th, and as such, our briefing session that was scheduled for the 30th of November 2010 was subsequently cancelled. As such, the Planning and Development Department, and the committee is in agreement with this, is forwarding the application from Industrial Rubber Newfoundland to occupy, again, approximately 12,000 square feet within the building of 44 Clyde Avenue for the storage and assembly of rubber products, with a recommendation for development permit approval subject to 4 conditions that are outlined here: the St. John's Regional Fire Department requirements, the inspector's requirements, the financial division requirements, and finally the Planning and Development Department requirements. And I so move.
Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried.
And the second item, Your Worship, here is a request from our Director of Planning and Development to attend Canadian Municipalities Sustainable Communities Conference that's being held in Victoria, British Columbia, February the 8th to 11th. Funding for this conference is available within the professional development budget. The committee supports this request, and I move that this request be accepted as presented.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Locke. It is seconded by Councillor Aker. Question or comment? All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried.
And the next item here, Your Worship, is a new building application for 24 Kyle Avenue. And this is from Billard's Trucking, that's proposing a third building to be constructed on the lot at 24 Kyle Avenue. This building is to be used for general storage in association with the existing trucking and crane operation business that's being operated right here. The auxiliary building is proposed in addition to an existing main building on the lot, as well as another existing storage building. The proposed warehousing use is a permitted use in the industrial light land use zone, and the proposal meets the general development standard for that zone. The signing of a development agreement for 3 buildings on the lot, however, will be required, and that's why council approval is required here. The planning department has no objection to this proposal. The committee supports the recommendation of the department, and the recommendation is that approval of the development application by Billard's Trucking proposing a third building on the lot at 24 Kyle Avenue, subject to the signing of a development agreement, the proposal meeting development standards of the light industrial land use zone, standard development permit requirements, as well as requirements of external authorities and internal city departments. And I so move.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Locke, seconded by Councillor Aker. Question or comment? Hearing none, all in favor? Contrary minded, motion is carried.
The next item, Your Worship, is a confirmation of an order that was issued with respect to 1 Centennial Street. The committee was advised that an order has been issued to Roger Coombs, Chartered Accountant, on December 3rd, 2010, with regard to the property owner being required to provide 3 things: the final electrical certificate from Government Service Centre, the final building accessibility certificate from Government Service Centre, and the sprinkler system certification. Pursuant to the Urban and Rural Planning Act, a confirmation of the order is required by Council. The committee supports the confirmation of the order. As such, the recommendation is that confirmation of the order, the issuance of the order to Roger Coombs, Chartered Accountant, as issued on December 3rd, 2010, be supported, and I so move.
Moved, seconded by Councillor Aker. Question or comment? All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion is carried.
The next item, Your Worship, is an application or proposal for the replacement of some existing grain silos on Topsa Road that were damaged during Hurricane Igor. And this is from Country Ribbon Incorporated on 1273 Topsa Road. The proponent advised is proposing to build 1 larger silo to replace the 4 smaller ones. And in terms of the relationship to the surrounding land use areas, the subject property is located in the industrial light land use zone, and a combination of light, general, and hazardous industrial uses, as well as commercial and garage uses, exist in the area. So the proposed hazardous industrial use is within the range of uses that Council may permit, but again, at Council's discretion. With respect to the St. John's Urban Regional Plan, this proposal is within the guidelines and complies with the policies of the regional plan. With respect to the City of Mount Pearl Municipal Plan 1988, it may be permitted, again, at the discretion of Council. And with respect to our development regulations, the proposed building height exceeds the building standards for the light industrial land use zone. So as such, again, it's a discretionary use. Scooting ahead here. The proposed building height is 22.86 meters, which exceeds the standard building height of 15 meters within the light industrial land use zone. Therefore, it has to be processed in accordance with Condition 24 of our light industrial land use zone, specifying the following. In terms of additional maximum height, the authority may use its discretion to allow the building height to be increased up to a maximum of 24 meters, provided that the height will not have a negative visual impact on the view plane, will not be considered out of character with the surrounding area, will not unduly cast shadows on adjacent properties, and will not create any adverse environmental impacts for adjacent or surrounding properties. Again, given that it was a discretionary use, the City did advertised for a briefing session. Again, the city did not receive any representations in response to the public notice. Therefore, the briefing session that was scheduled for December 1st, 2010 was cancelled. Since no representations were received in response to this notice by the noted deadline, and a satisfying response has been received from the Department of Municipal Affairs, the St. John's Regional Fire Department, and Newfoundland Power, the Planning and Development Department has no objection to Country Ribbon replacing 4 existing grain silos with 1 new grain silo that will be 22.86 metres in height and 8.23 metres in diameter in the rear of the existing facility at 1273 Topsa Road, subject to the 7 conditions that are outlined there. The committee supports this, and I so move.
It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Imagine how long it would be if we had to turn it down.
Contrary minded? Motion carried, yeah.
The nature of planning and development, Councillor Walsh.
Yep, that's true enough too, isn't it?
And
All right, we're up to permits here.
I appreciated a lot of that. Can you imagine if I had to read the full report?
I appreciate that.
Yes, we do.
Sure
We
you do.
appreciate that.
And I'm sure the people at home appreciate it as well. And Councillor Lane to my left here is waiting to present his budget, so I'm trying to push on as quickly as I can.
There's a new grain silo going up at 1273 Topsa Road. End of story.
She's massive,
And it's going to be big.
indeed. But it will cause no problems.
That's right.
All right. The next item, Your Worship, is the development permit list for November 27th to December 10th, 2010. We have 7 items on this permit list, and I move that the permit list be accepted as presented.
Moved, seconded by Councillor Aker. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried.
The next item, Your Worship, is the building permit list, again for the dates of November 27th to December 10th of 2010. During this time period, residential construction totaled almost $2 million. At the same time, we had commercial permits at $74,000, and the same time period, our civil works came in at $26,300,000, bringing the total for this time period to $27,573,800, and I move that the amounts be accepted as presented.
Moved and seconded. Question or comment? Hearing none. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried.
And I do know that Councillor Lane will be touching on this item as well in terms of the number of permits for the year, so I'll leave that to Councillor Lane there. The next item, Your Worship, is a notice of motion. In accordance with Section 39 of the City of Mount Pearl Act 1988, take notice that I will, at a regular meeting of Council, move that, if enacted, will adopt the City of Mount Pearl Plumbing Regulations 2011. The purpose of the proposed regulations is to implement regulations that reflect current practices and procedures with respect to codes, inspections, and conditions of the City of Mount Pearl, dated today, the 21st of December 2010. And the final item, Your Worship, is another notice of motion. In accordance with Section 39 of the City of Mount Pearl Act 1988, take notice that I will, at a regular meeting of Council, move an amendment to the text of the Mount Pearl Fence Regulations 1988 that, if enacted, will amend the definition of fence as follows. Fence includes railing, wall, line of posts, wire, gate, boards, or other similar substances used for the purpose of privacy and protection, or to separate or divide any parcel of land or part thereof from any other parcel of land or part thereof immediately adjacent thereto, or to establish a property boundary, and shall include hedges, shrubs, and landscaping features which are used for these purposes. The intention of this amendment is to include hedges in the definition of fences, and again dated today, the 21st of December. And that is it for me, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. We're moving on. Corporate Services Committee report. Councillor Lane, if you would.
Your Worship, thank you. Unplug. First item, Your Worship.
There had to be one councillor who struggles with this, and you were him.
And it was
You
me.
were him.
That
And
was
it all has to do with power. With plugging it in and unplugging
I
it.
know.
Anyway,
I know.
here we go.
Anyway, the first item, Your Worship, just a tax deferral for low-income earners. They're listed here, A to E. There are 5, and we are recommending that these tax deferrals, as listed under our low-earner policy, be adopted. And I so move.
It is moved by Councillor Lane, seconded by Councillor Tessier. This is low-income policy that we've had for several years. All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion is carried.
Secondly, Your Worship, committee is recommending approval to be granted to renew a $3 million line of credit with Scotiabank in accordance with Section 116 of the Mount Pearl City Act. And again, that's normal. We do that every year this time. I so move.
Moved, seconded by Councillor Tessier. All those in favour? Contrary minded, motion carried.
Next, Your Worship, committee recommends approval of the 2009 PSAB compliant financial statements as audited by the firm Harris Ryan Chartered Accountants, reporting a net debt position of $17,356,455 and an accumulated surplus of $75,084,865, which includes the net book value of our tangible capital assets totaling $111,007,200. And Your Worship, this all stemmed, I guess, from the gas tax agreement. And any municipality who signed up for the gas tax agreement had to convert their accounting to the PSAB accounting. So that's what we've done as part of that agreement. This is the first year, and our finance officer here, Ms. Peach, she has it, and it is available to council. I'm not going to go through it all here now, but it will be there. It
is moved and it is seconded. We have to adopt this, I'm assuming?
We do have to adopt it. Yes.
It is moved and it is seconded by Councillor Tessier. Can I ask just a brief question?
Sure.
If I might, Councillor Lane, to the Director of Corporate Services.
Sure.
What am I looking at? It says a net debt position of 17 million. A net debt position to me would imply that which we owe against that which we own. So are we saying that we have $111 million worth of assets in the city and we owe 17 million against it? Well, I'm not sure if I understand the sentence. Is anybody as lost as I am? I'm not an accountant, so.
No, you're the only one, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. All right. Well, you know, it's better to know what one votes for. So on all of your behalfs, because I know I'm not alone. Ms. Peach, can you give me an explanation in a different way? Because this sentence doesn't say to me what I don't understand it.
No problem, Your Worship. The reference that Councillor Lane made to the net debt position.
Yeah, what's that?
It's specifically the new PSAB requirements required municipalities now to present their financial assets and their liabilities. And the net debt is the difference between the financial assets and the liabilities. After that comes your tangible capital assets, are shown separately. And so those two numbers are basically the main numbers that end up on your main financial statement.
So if we were looking at this as a standard financial statement, I'm correct in saying that that $111 million in total assets would be assets less 17 million in liabilities. Is that right, or is it? What am I missing there?
The financial assets plus the tangible capital assets, all added together, less our liabilities, is $75 million. Surplus is simply assets less liabilities.
Assets less liability, and we're always going to be in a position where our assets are way ahead of our liabilities, right?
I would hope so.
That's how this That's how this PSAB stuff works.
That's right.
Get your head around it all. Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else got a stupid question for which there is no such thing?
That wasn't a stupid question, Your Worship. We were all in the dark.
Thank you. I got a feeling most of us are a little.
Your Worship, I think to put it, and that's not going to explain any better than Ms. Peach for sure. I definitely can.
You're going to get yourself in
But
trouble.
I might get myself in trouble.
No, I don't mind hearing a layman's
but,
definition. That would be good.
But for the benefit, I guess, of everybody, the way this is supposed to work now is that you have to identify all of your tangible capital assets. So
Everything
if you
the
have
city-
a section
everything you
of
own.
road, if you have a section of road, for example,
Yeah, you own it. It's worth
you
something.
own that road. So everything above ground, underground, and so on, there's a value to that. The cost of the asphalt, what that's worth, the pipes, what that's worth, and so on. And the whole idea behind this, and it flowed from the gas tax agreement, is that to be able to identify what you own and then what condition it is in. So in other words, so you're going to amortize that particular asset. So you can look at it and say, I've got a pipe here, it's worth $100,000, but it's 50% worn. So I know in X number of years I'm going to have to replace that pipe. So it was put in place as a means of being able to identify all the assets you have.
So we now
what
devalue the value
of it is,
of
and
our
then you
assets.
devalue each asset. Exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
So then you kind of know what it's worth, because you can say I have all these assets, but if the assets are half worn out or 3/4 worn out, you don't really have those full assets, do you?
We're going to, okay,
So-
I think we got her, I hope. All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
Okay.
All right, there's a quiz later, folks.
Okay, the next one, Your Worship, is the November payment register, totaling $4,392,504.01, and presented for the information of council. And next we have our invoices for approval, totaling $1,085,454.31, and I so move.
It is moved, seconded by Councillor Tessier. No add-ons today, no pink paper?
No paper.
No paper at all, as a matter of fact.
No more paper.
Anybody got a question on items 1 through 18? Anyone there that stands out at all to anybody that we're not that jumps out at you?
It's only 17 because 5 and 7 went from 5 to 6.
I'm sorry, 17. Yeah, it goes 5, 7, 8. The 6 is not there. Items 1 through 5 and 7 through 18. All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion is carried.
Next, Your Worship, we just want to table the 2009-2010 Municipal Assessment Agency annual report, and I do have a copy of it here, and I'm just going to table it for the Information Council. If anyone would like to see it at some point, they're certainly welcome to it.
Thank you.
Next item, Your Worship, I also want to table the Municipal Assessment Agency's December 2010 newsletter, again for the information of council. And actually, if you look in this particular newsletter, right on the inside page here, we actually have Brian Peach, who is our Director of Corporate Services son, receiving a scholarship. Yeah, he's like our poster boy from Mount Pearl. Every time I turn around, he's getting awards or scholarships or something. It's fabulous. And he's our Male Youth of the Year. Anyway, I think he must get it from his father. Just kidding, Michelle. Next, Your Worship, we have advertising requests for the Mount Pearl Sport Alliance Hall of Fame Athlete of the Year ceremonies, and we're recommending a 1/3 page ad in that book at a cost of $100, and I so move.
It is moved, seconded by Councillor Tessier. All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
Yeah, and by the way, Your Worship, the Hall of Fame induction will be taking place at the Reed Centre on January the 28th. And the last item before we get into the budget, Your Worship, is relates to the Canadian Red Cross. And the committee recommends approval of $10,000 contribution to the Canadian Red Cross service for services which would be provided during emergency situations. And Your Worship, this again ties into our emergency preparedness plan. As council is aware, we are in the process of updating our plan, and the generator which was brought forward earlier tied into this, and this also ties into it. There's no doubt that if there were a serious emergency in the city of Mount Pearl, that we would be calling upon the Red Cross to supply us with lots of services, equipment, and so on. And in recognition of that, we have entered into a partnership with them. So we're recommending approval of that $10,000. And I so move.
Moved, seconded. Questions, comments? All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion is carried. Before you get into that, and as you're getting ready to deliver the budget speech, can I take just a moment on behalf of council to recognize that we do have in the chamber with us today the president of the Mount Pearl Chamber, or president-elect, I guess is how we got to call you. Is it Bruce at this point in time? Bruce Mullen is here. Luann Snow is here, and they're here to visit you, Councillor Lane. They want to hear from you today.
Well, they're always welcome.
So we want you to know, well, you're welcome. We're delighted to see you here this afternoon. Go right ahead.
Okay, Your Worship. While I certainly
Have you turned a paper?
I have, and while I certainly support this technology, the reality of it is, based on my eyesight and dexterity and everything else, if I have to try scrolling down through that, and that's probably going to be a disaster. So I've decided,
You haven't
for
mastered
the
it yet,
purposes
eh?
of the budget only, that I'm going to use the old-fashioned paper. Okay?
Oh, we got to say shame on it, don't we?
Well, go ahead.
Oh, shame.
That's fine.
Okay, now you can begin.
And the other reason why I'm doing that is because I just refuse to wear glasses. But I know I'm going to have to come to grips with that as well at some point.
Oh, so it's personal pride that's really driving this here.
Getting old. Anyway, Your Worship, fellow councillors, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Council and as Chair of Corporate Services, I'm pleased to present the City of Mount Pearl's 2011 budget. I would like to start by thanking Council and staff for their efforts and contributions in the preparation of this budget. Many hours of hard work and healthy debate went into the budgetary process, which has resulted in a budget which I believe reflects fiscal responsibility, environmental progress, innovation, and improved services throughout our city. Before getting into the details of our 2011 budget, Your Worship, I would like to highlight some of our major accomplishments over the past year. These include continued construction of the Glacier Arena expansion, with completion scheduled for this coming March and new ice being ready for users by April 1st, 2011. Continued contribution towards the regional Riverhead wastewater treatment facility, bringing the City of Mount Pearl's contribution towards the construction of this facility to nearly $11 million. An unprecedented investment in street repair and road upgrading of nearly $10 million. Opening of the province's first ever international-sized artificial turf soccer field located at the Team Guju complex. Installation of our first public sculpture entitled The Source, located at Centennial Square. Introduction of an expanded curbside recycling program to include plastics and metals, in addition to the paper and fibre already being collected. Adoption of a new Mount Pearl logo and branding strategy to reflect the city's image of working together to make things better and pursuing high standards. Numerous enhancements in the area of information technology, including a redesign of our website, webcasting of council meetings, online registration for swimming programs, and online booking of our facilities, as well as implementation of paperless council meetings.
Boo.
Boo again. Signing of a new four-year, I'll recycle it. Signing of a new four-year collective agreement with QP Local 2099. Continued partnership with our Chamber of Commerce on many initiatives to help grow and develop the local business community. As for private development in our community in 2010, Your Worship, I'm pleased to announce an unprecedented level of construction in the city of $48 million in residential, commercial, and industrial construction. As well, just over 100 new businesses opened in the city in 2010, creating 623 new jobs. We are thankful to all our businesses, big and small, for making us a net importer of jobs in the region. We are likewise very thankful to all who choose to conduct their business in the City of Mount Pearl. We realize the valuable contribution that commuters and visitors make to our local business community, and wish to continue to send a strong message that we are open for business and that all are welcome in Mount Pearl. Now to 2011, Your Worship. This is going to be another great year in the City of Mount Pearl. Our needs are great, as you know, and our resources are limited. However, I believe we have been successful in achieving a balance between addressing priority issues while at the same time keeping costs at a manageable level for our taxpayers. Best budgeting practices start with looking at the costs of running our operation, and in doing so, we deliberated over potential expenditures of $45 million to run the city in 2011. While all proposed expenditures were very worthwhile, it became readily apparent that such a level of expenditures was beyond the fiscal capacity of both residents and businesses. As a result, Council decided to trim expenditures and delay a number of important capital projects on a priority basis in order to settle on a final expenditure budget for 2011 of $37.4 million, the highest in our history. Unfortunately, Your Worship, there are components of our budget over which we actually have little control. In fact, half of our budget goes towards just two main expenditure categories. 20% of our budget, equaling $7.4 million, goes towards the cost of regional services, including fire protection, purchase of water, public transit, wastewater treatment, and waste management. These costs continue to rise every year, and we are committed to paying our fair share of this regional burden. Fire protection and water costs alone will increase over $500,000 in 2011. 30% of our budget, equaling $11.2 million, is spent on wages and related mandatory payroll costs. And like all municipalities, these costs continue to rise each year. These costs reflect the increases negotiated in our new 4-year collective agreement signed with our CUPE Local 2099 in 2010. While we realize that these increases have an impact on our budgetary process, we likewise realize and appreciate the tremendous contribution which our employees have and continue to make in our city, and we are committed to ensuring that they receive fair and competitive compensation for the great services that they provide to the citizens of Mount Pearl. Another large expenditure category is that of building and replacing our municipal infrastructure. This spending is a little more controllable in that Council can choose between conflicting priorities, but nevertheless, the demands placed upon the city to address the infamous infrastructure deficit facing all municipalities across the country are high. At the start of this budgetary process, Council was faced with choosing amongst $21 million worth of valuable equipment needs and very worthwhile capital works projects, some of which were driven by over $2 million in damages sustained to the city's infrastructure by Hurricane Igor. In the end, in order to both avoid a tax increase and avoid increasing the city's debt load, only $8.5 million out of the $21 million in requests in capital spending came out of our general revenue and gas tax revenue was approved. This contribution by our residents and businesses, along with the help of funding from other levels of government, will enable us to complete capital works next year of over $13 million. This includes over $5 million in various street upgrading and improvements, replacement of equipment in order to continue to provide a high level of municipal services that our residents expect and deserve, and enhancements to many of the city's outdoor recreational facilities that we are so admired for, including such things as the refurbishing of our basketball courts, walking trails and bridges, softball facilities, and construction of a new state-of-the-art skateboard park. This level of investment into our community without borrowing funds to be repaid by future generations is remarkable. The City of Mount Pearl, in this budget, will maintain a debt ratio of only 6%, a sound fiscal position to be in, and one we specifically set out to achieve many years ago by adopting a pay-as-you-go philosophy in addressing our infrastructure needs. Your Worship, in addition to the recreational infrastructure investments previously outlined, I would be remiss if I didn't highlight the fact that it is also our intention in early 2011 to issue the tender for the construction of our new recreational multiplex facility, which will see, among other things, a significant expansion to the Reed Centre, a 300-seat theatre for the arts, a new swimming pool, a leisure pool, an indoor walking track, and a new teen centre. This is the most significant recreational project ever undertaken in the city of Mount Pearl, and once completed, the citizens of Mount Pearl will be proud owners of the most modern, eco-friendly recreational complex in the province, if not all of Eastern Canada. Your Worship, I would like to point out two other important commitments we have made recently and their impact on this budget. Firstly, as you know, last year we committed to embracing the concept of green technology in order to take a leadership role within the province in the protection of our environment. This was evident in the design we chose for the expansion of the glacier, which included the EcoChill ice refrigeration system, heat recovery processes, use of grey water technology, and other initiatives in order to achieve LEED Silver status for this building. This commitment is continued into 2011, Your Worship, with $389,000 being provided for 2 electric ice resurfacers, and as well extra positions being allocated to accommodate the expansion of our curbside recycling program to include plastic and metal containers, and also to examine all aspects of the City of Mount Pearl's operations and initiate policies and programs which will bring us in line with our goal of becoming a leader in environmental stewardship within the province. Secondly, we have committed to adopting a corporate strategic plan which will focus our efforts in the next 5 years towards enhanced governance, service delivery, employee engagement, and age-friendliness within our city. The process of setting out our specific goals and objectives is still underway, but to show our commitment to this, $150,000 has been earmarked for initiatives that may arise out of the action plans that will be made to achieve those goals and objectives. Council is excited with the opportunity this will provide to strengthen our status as a progressive, independent city, responsive to the needs of our citizens. Other items worthy of mention in this budget, Your Worship, include continuing support we provide in many forms, totaling $804,000 to our youth, our aging adults, and other groups, such as Frosty Festivals, City Days, Mount Pearl Sport Alliance, the Glacier and Smallwood Arenas, Admiralty Museum and Archives, our local Chamber of Commerce, the Seniors Independence Group, and many more. The Senior Citizens 20% property tax discount will continue to be provided to those in need, and an interest exemption will be available to all senior citizens who remain current with their tax payments. Our interest exemption and tax deferral policy for low-income earners will be continued as well. This provides much appreciated relief for our residents whose incomes fall below $30,000 a year. Business tax exemption will continue to be provided to all operators of daycares and personal care homes within the city. This tax break hopefully allows these operators to spend a little more on the services they provide in looking after our loved ones, and we are pleased to be able to extend these exemptions once again. After determining the operating costs of running our city and choosing a responsible level of capital spending for 2011, the city's expenditure budget for 2011 is $37,355,000, an increase of just 4.5% over last year. As always, Council considered all avenues available to fund these expenses. A modest but steady amount of growth in our tax base provided some additional revenues to offset the increased costs we were facing, but not enough to cover all without an increase in our mill rate. Council was reluctant to do this, however, as our residents' desire to hold the line on taxes is always foremost in our minds, and therefore we are very pleased to have been able to balance this budget without having to increase our mill rates, for both residents and businesses in 2011. However, in considering the actual price of water we purchase from the Regional Water Authority, the continued increase in prices that we're projecting into the future, the high standards required to ensure safe delivery of water to each property and safe delivery of wastewater to the treatment plant, and the fleet and other necessary equipment required to operate our systems, it became obvious that an increase in our water and wastewater fees was necessary if we were to remain sustainable and to recover these costs, which will be in excess of $6 million in 2011. Therefore, to better match our revenues to expenses, we, like many municipalities in the region, have found it necessary to increase these fees again this year. Therefore, effective for 2011, the water and wastewater fees will increase by $50, from $500 to $550 a year, and the commercial and metered rates will be adjusted accordingly. At just $46 per month, Your Worship, for this vital service, this is still perhaps the lowest cost that any of us pay for the many utilities we purchase for daily living. Now, Your Worship, as required by legislation, I'm pleased to move the following motions. Be it resolved that the City of Mount Pearl, in accordance with the City of Mount Pearl Act, establish the following tax rates for 2011 taxation year, and Your Worship, they are listed there from 1 to 5, and I so move.
And they represent no change?
They represent no change
From last
other
year.
than the $50
Other than the water change.
change in water. Everything
Thank
else
you.
remains the same.
Thank you. It is moved.
No mill rate increase.
It is moved and seconded by Councillor Tessier. I'm going to ask for question or comment after all the motions have been made. Those in favour? Contrary-minded motion is carried.
Be it resolved that the City of Mount Pearl, in accordance with the City of Mount Pearl Act, approved the attached schedule of rates and fees to take effect January 1st, 2011, and I so move.
Moved and seconded. All those in favour? Contrary-minded motion carried.
Be it resolved that the City of Mount Pearl, in accordance with the City of Mount Pearl Act, approve an annual rate of interest of 10% to be levied on all past due taxes and accounts receivable, and I so move.
Moved, seconded. All those in favour? Contrary-minded motion carried.
And finally, Your Worship, be it resolved that the City of Mount Pearl, in accordance with the City of Mount Pearl Act, approve the 2011 budget with operating revenues and expenditures totaling $37,355,000, and I so move.
Moved, seconded. All those in favour? Contrary-minded?
Thank you, Your Worship.
And the motion is carried. Thank you very much. Does that conclude corporate services? Nothing else?
It does indeed.
It does indeed. Thank you very much, Councillor Lane, for that. We are up to new business. I don't even know where we started last time, so I'm just going to begin with Councillor Aker. New business and any comment, obviously, on budget.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. One comment I have on the budget is that people ask me quite often, how come Mount Pearl tables their budget last? And I can't speak for the other municipalities, but typically we're last because I think we work to the last minute trying to get the budget balanced. We've gone through it very thoroughly. We've had a lot of late night meetings, and basically I think it's a very good blend of progressive services, meeting our obligations regionally, as well as providing...
We're all here with no bruises. That's what's surprising.
Well, but on water, I mean, I don't think we had any choice but to increase
Oh,
it.
no,
Basically,
everybody
when you
knows
look
the
at the
circumstance
cost.
on
I don't
water.
think it's fair to use property and business tax to subsidize water tax. So that's why I voted in favor of the budget, and I'm sure everybody else will rise to say the same thing. Just a few items, Your Worship. I noticed that out in the City hallway here, we have the Hall of Fame signs now being
Looks very good,
put up.
too.
Yes, indeed. They were put up this time of the year because, as Councillor Lane said earlier on January 28th, we're going to have the Hall of Fame inductee ceremony, and I believe that these pictures will be part of that ceremony on that night. So I'd like to make the public aware that the signs are down here. They're kind of lost right now because normally they were posted originally in the glacier, but that's under renovations, and their ultimate destiny will be the new recreation complex. So I wanted to make a note of that. Speaking of signs, I noticed as I'm coming in from Mount Pearl to St. John's, our new signs. Councillor Lane talked about our branding strategy earlier on. There's 2 new signs almost fully constructed, so I imagine in the next few weeks those signs will be turned on. One other comment I'd like to pass on, condolences to the F-Check family. Stefan, your mother-in-law passed away, and she will be truly missed. I know she was very personal and dear to you, and I'd just like to pass on my condolences. And the last thing is for everybody in the chamber, the staff, and the residents of Mount Pearl, I wish everybody a Merry Christmas. And with that, I'll close. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. First of all, I want to thank, or congratulate actually, and thank Councillor Lane and the members of his Corporate Services Committee and all members of Council, actually, Your Worship, on what I consider to be a very responsible, and I'd use the word frugal budget because...
Oh, frugal work.
Frugal for sure, because I think one of the things that Councillor Lane did say, and I think it needs to be underscored a little even more, that we actually trimmed approximately $7 million from this budget. We started out with about, $44, $45 million, and every one of those requests were legitimate operational and or capital
Absolutely.
requests. So things that we would have loved to have done, many times staff were a little miffed that we nixed them or deferred them or whatever, but they were all very good and all very legitimate. So I think our residents will be very, very pleased with the frugality and the responsibility that we showed here tonight. I again want to welcome, as you did already, Your Worship, Barry and Luann from the Chamber of Commerce. It's great to see them here, and it's great to see the interest that they continue to show in the budget. Did I say something wrong, Barry and
Bruce.
Oh, sorry, Bruce. Bruce Smollett. Sorry, Bruce.
Is that your brother, Barry? Is Barry your brother, Bruce?
No. Sorry, Bruce. I just want to mention from a business perspective a couple of things. I know that Bruce and Luann and all of the members of the corporate community will be very pleased with this budget. After all, Your Worship, again in that speech, 600 plus new jobs in the city of Mount Pearl. That's not small peanuts. That's a lot of work. No tax increase. 6% debt ratio. I did notice when the City of St. John's brought in their budget that the mayor in particular was gleaning in the fact that they had about a 9% debt ratio. Ours is 6%. Again, shows tremendous fiscal restraint and responsibility. The other thing that I want to point out in particular, and it pertains to the business community, is the fact that our business property mill rate is 12.5%. And I just want to point out in terms of the level of competitiveness that that's about 6 mills less than the business commercial property tax rate in the city of St. John's. And again, it underscores the importance of the competition, keeping the rates low. I mean, we could increase our rates for that as well, but we managed to do what we can do and provide excellent services and programs to residents with these mill rates. And I think the Chamber in particular will be very, very pleased with that. And I'm sorry, Bruce, I know your name and I know you. The last thing I want to mention, we've been working, as Councillor Ager already referenced, with the members of the Hall of Fame, had some meetings with them, and they're ongoing discussions, obviously with the hopes of finding a suitable permanent home for the Hall of Fame. We really haven't had that for a while, Your Worship. I'll be talking to Council a little more about that, but I want to extend as well and to join all of members of Council in saying that that is a really nice venue. It's not going to be a permanent venue, and I want to make that very, very clear. That atrium gets used for a lot of different purposes. That's not the most appropriate place anyway for a Hall of Fame, but it is very beautiful there. It's great that they're profiled there, and they will remain there, as you say, until the banquet later in the month. And with that, Your Worship, I want to join all members of Council in wishing our residents a very Merry Christmas, and all our viewers on Rogers Cable as well, and nothing but health and happiness and prosperity for 2011. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. Councillor Stoyles?
Thank you, Your Worship, and I too want to say great job to Councillor Lane, and as Councillor Walsh has said, I won't repeat everything that he had said. I think it's a great budget, and we certainly try to work hard on behalf of the residents of Mount Pearl, and that's what we're going to continue to do. I too want to pass along my sympathy to the F-Check family. Mrs. Davis is passing. I know she lived with Stephen and Charlotte, and I too want to pass it on to Stephen. And I also want to pass on my sympathies to the Murphy family. Former Mayor John Murphy passed away, and I'm assuming you've already passed along and sent off sympathies on behalf of Council, and I'm sure you did. Your Worship, also I received a lovely Christmas card from a resident of Mount Pearl, a long-term resident of Mount Pearl. Her name is Margaret Earls, and she sent me a lovely picture and a clip of her son. Patrick Earls, who received an award, a service award, from the Governor General Michel John a few months ago, I guess, and it only came a couple of days ago, and certainly he's one of 4 Canadians that received this award. And Your Worship, I'm going to pass this along to you, and I would like for you to send off a letter of congratulations to the Earl family. And I know Mrs. Earls have been involved in a number of community events over the year. I know she's involved with me with the Lupus
I think we'd be honored to
and
do
I
that.
think everybody knows her as well, and I think it'd be nice to do that.
Absolutely.
And the other thing I wanted to mention, Your Worship, of course, was the Chamber, Bruce and Luann that's here today. And as Economic Development Department, we have been meeting with the Chamber on a regular basis. We meet with them several times a year. They have an event coming up in January the 6th at 4:45. They've just completed or in the process of finishing the strategic planning sessions, and they have an information session at Don Cherry's on January the 6th at 4:45, and I'm sure some of us around the table will be attending that event, and we certainly hope that the business community will come out, and they're going to do a small presentation, and after that they're going to have some discussions, I guess, from the business community. So this is a chance, if you're not a member of the Chamber, to come out and hear about the Chamber, and maybe you might consider being a member. It's certainly important to be a member of the Chamber, and I know they've been looking at expanding even further into the other areas of the other region, and I wish them well with that. And last, Your Worship, I want to wish the residents and our staff a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go to Councillor Tessier.
Switching it up a little bit.
I'm coming in a little bit here, yes.
All right, that's good. Great job, Councillor Lane. Once again, the residents of Mount Pearl can certainly take comfort in knowing that, we pour over this budget line by line. Sometimes
Is that what you call it?
pour over.
My house is called a racket.
It's a racket. Well, sometimes it's a racket. But again, you said yourself there are no bruises, and I think there were very few tears shed. I'm not sure if there were none particularly.
Yes.
But there were very few. So again, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure actually to go through the process, and it's an even bigger pleasure for it to be over, I have to tell you. A piece of business for the residents. Next week, because of the holiday schedule, anybody whose garbage is regularly picked up on Tuesday, it will now be picked up on Wednesday. I know in my area it's a Tuesday pickup, so it'll actually be on Wednesday of next week and not on Tuesday.
And if you're regularly Wednesday, it's still Wednesday.
Still Wednesday. Still Wednesday. And again, the only other thing that I really wanted to say was, again, echo the sentiments of my colleagues here. Wish staff and the residents and all of council a very, very Merry Christmas, and certainly nothing but joy and goodwill in the new year. And again, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank staff for giving us such a wonderful year again. It's, it sometimes comes with tremendous headaches. And a lot of hard work, and we just, we're really appreciative of your efforts all year round, and it's just important for us to acknowledge that from time to time as the year ends. It's a nice thing to do. That's it, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Tessier. Councillor Lane. He's burnt out, he says.
Well, it's not very often, to be honest with you, Your Worship, as you know, that when we do the go-around, I don't have anything to say. But I think I said enough for one day. So all I'm going to say is, again, to echo everybody's sentiments, Merry Christmas, obviously, to the residents of the city of Mount Pearl, and to our staff. And Councillor Tessier is right, at the end of the day, we come out of this, in most cases, smelling like roses. But, it's these guys here across from us that are doing all the work on the ground, and not just these guys, but, the men and women that are out plowing the roads and dealing with the sewer backups and everything else. They do a tremendous job. And so my hat's off to them as well. Thank you. That's all I have, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Deputy Mayor Locke.
Thank you, Your Worship. Much of what I was going to say has already been said. I want to extend congratulations to Councillor Lane and his committee and the staff for working on the budget. It is a long process. I spent a lot of time with council and staff over the last month and a half, probably more time than I've spent.
We've become family, haven't we?
Well, you're closer than family in a lot of cases, it's bad when your wife starts asking for ID when you knock on your door, right? But in all seriousness, I think the reference was made here that we're ever mindful that we're keepers of the public purse. So we go through it line by line very diligently. And yes, we would have liked, as many residents were asking me, emailing me, are we going to have a tax rollback, a mill rate rollback. But again, we did what we did to maintain services. As Councillor Walsh, he highlighted all the key points. It's a very responsible, very frugal budget, but it will allow us to move forward and continue to progress as we do as a progressive city in the region. So I just want to say I'm in full support of all the decisions, and again congratulate council and staff for all the work that they did on the budget. I too would like to extend condolences to Mr. Yevchek and his family. I didn't know his mother-in-law personally, but I did go to the funeral home, and everyone I spoke of just spoke so highly of this lady, a remarkable woman. So again, I just wanted to extend condolences to Stefan and his family. Also as well, Your Worship, last week I had the privilege of representing the city at the Mount Pearl Senior High Diploma Night for the graduates of 2010. And at that time, I was able to award the City of Mount Pearl Scholarship to Caitlin Quinlan. So I just wanted to acknowledge that publicly. Caitlin came away with many awards that night, and certainly a worthy candidate, so I did want to highlight that. Mm-hmm. As well, on another issue, I brought this up at another meeting, and Mr. Lush looked into it for me with respect to the traffic lights on Michener and Ruth, and I don't know if changes have been made yet, because every time I've driven through there, there's been nobody on the traffic lights. But I want to emphasize again, especially this time of the year now where it gets dark so early, we've had a very dreary December, and we've had some accidents with kids being knocked down. Just to remind the drivers that you've got to be ever mindful, and school is out on Wednesday, so all these little critters now are going to be out excited for Santa Claus, bouncing around, so you've got to keep your eyes extra peeled during this time of the year. And I'm just curious as to whether or not we were able to implement some of the suggestions we made with respect to that traffic light on Michener and Ruth. Could you speak to that, Mr. Lush?
Yes, we have increased the all-stop time, as
Okay.
you suggested, so we should see the changes in it.
All right, but is it only pedestrian activated?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now, just for the residents and the viewers at home, one of the things that we discussed at council here at that particular intersection was that a lot of kids use the crosswalk on Michener and Ruth, and a lot of drivers early in the morning when they're in a hurry to get to work, they don't wait for the children to actually get off the crosswalk. And by law, your drivers are supposed to wait until the pedestrian is off the crosswalk onto the sidewalk. Myself, walking to work frequently, I've seen groups of children going across the crosswalk, sort of in two groups, and I've seen cars actually drive between the two groups of children on the crosswalk. So what we've looked at doing right now, it's pedestrian activated, so when the kiddies push it, the walk sign will come up first. There will be a four-way red stop. Is that correct, Mr. Lush? So all cars will be stopped for probably 4 or 5 seconds, just to give the students an increased opportunity to get across the crosswalk. So just to let residents know that in that particular area, we've altered the lights there, again, for the safety of the children in that particular area. So thank you, Mr. Lush, for that. Also, I would like to... I mentioned about the kids and the schools being out on Wednesday, and I guess the last thing for me to do is extend season's greetings. Again, to all my fellow councillors, it's a pleasure working with you. Another successful year. Again, I see too much of you, but you're not a bad crew to hang around with. Same thing with the staff. Again, a lot of work goes on in this city. The success of our city is due to the work of the councillors, our senior management, and all the workers with the City of Mount Pearl. So I just want to extend a sincere thank you for all the work that you do, and a very Merry Christmas and a happy 2011 to all people at the city, and indeed to all the residents of Mount Pearl. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just before I entertain a motion to adjourn, one thing, I'm surprised nobody did it, but I thought that you would. Whenever we bring down a municipal budget in our city, one of the things that we've been doing for several years is we actually send out a notification to all residents, and it shows where your municipal tax dollars at work, it's going to say in 2011. On the back it gives you some of the major budget highlights, but in the center it will actually show you all of the revenue that the city raises and where it comes from, and it will show you all of the areas where we actually spend the money and how we come up with a balanced budget. So it's where the money comes from and where the money goes, and that's on the inside. Now, I'm not sure they needed the pretty pictures of all of these great-looking councillors on the front, but why not? And that's going out in the mail to everybody. I would imagine they'll have that with a couple of weeks after Christmas. Ms. Peach, it goes out with the tax bill. How nice is that, right? Now I know why you didn't mention it. It goes out with your tax bill. I want to join with everyone and offer Mr. Yevchek and his family our condolences on the loss of his mother-in-law. She was a well-known artist, by the way, in this community, a very enthusiastic member and promoter of the arts community. Lived a long and joyous life. Of that there was no doubt, and you could recognize that at the funeral home. Most of the tears were tears of joy and celebration. They weren't of a tremendous amount of sadness, only to those to whom she was closest. Not a lot of people love their mother-in-law like Stefan loved his, and that's why we really appreciate what a wonderful lady she was, and our condolences to you and to your family. You will always have, I know, fond memories of her for all the years to come. And I want to join with everyone else and wish the residents of the entire region who get to see us, not just Mount Pearl and but everybody in the region, a very happy New Year, a very Merry Christmas. 2011 looks like it's going to be a great one here in the city of Mount Pearl. And with that, our next meeting is January the 11th. With that motion to adjourn, it is moved by Councillor Walsh. We stand adjourned. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas, Randy.